Révolution.
Before the revolution, France went to war with Britain, but they lost, causing them to be in financial debt.
The king, however, did not care. He would leave the economy for the peasants to fix, while he would throw parties on his castle. This caused the French to be enlightened. They had suffered enough. Why do they need a king who will do nothing? When Louis XV died, his grandson, Louis Capet, became King of France in May 1774, thus becoming King Louis XVI. One of his first acts as a king was to take revenge on the British by financing the American colonies' revolution. But the Americans did not pay his lent money back, making France be in even more debt. In the end, he would leave for the peasants to grow the economy, while he would party with her wife Marie Antoinette, while the peasants would live in horrendous conditions. King Louis XVI's solution was to tax the peasants, who were already in ruins. He would also take pieces of land, and there would be a labor tax, where you worked days for your lord without being paid. What made the peasants furious, though, was that they hated how inconsistent the taxation was, as other states had little to no taxation, whereas they would have to pay all of what they had. What made things escalate was the natural disasters. The harsh, unbearable and inconsistent weather killed their crops, leaving them devastated as they had no money or food. These disasters made the price of bread skyrocket. The higher classes would not worry about this. However, the peasants rioted on the cities. Bakers were even hanged for being suspected that they were keeping the bread for themselves. The king called the Estates General. It was the first time it was called since 175 years ago. All of the states would get one vote to reach an agreement. This was very unfair to the peasants, because even though they made 98% of the population, the two other states would outvote them always. So they decided to make their own government, the National Assembly, where they would make their own laws and run the country. The king locked their first building, but they found another one down the road, a tennis court, and in June 20th, 1789, they all took the tennis court oath, in which they would be determined for the king to hear their demands. This new form of government included the most educated members of the third state, and some members of the second state joined their cause. They created the Jacobin Club, in which they agreed about the removal of the king. This made a thing to be common among the peasants and the king. Fear. The king, fearing for his position, made the military to take position around Paris. This made the National Assembly to fear that the king might arrest them, or even worse, execute them. Eventually this fear transformed into anger. After so much oppression, inequality, and even starvation, they decided that it was time to take action. They decided to make revolution. The National Assembly decided to make an army of their own. So they created the Bourgeois militia. Even some troops from the French military defected to the revolutionary side. In the morning of July 14th, 1789, the large crowd stormed and raided the Hotel des Invalides, where they secured rifles, but found no gunpowder. So, in the middle of the morning, the crowd gathered around the Bastille. They tried to negotiate at first, but they became impatient and stormed it. They stuck Delaunay's head on a pike. However, this was not seen as a problem for the National Assembly, paving the way to bloodshed. This was also credited to one man. Jean-Paul Marat. He wrote on a newspaper named The People's Friend. He would encourage people's fear into anger and madness. With the help of Thomas Jefferson, the French acquired the document of the Declaration of the Citizens. Equality, however, was not a topic in France as for the people, because they were still in poverty. So, tired of this, on October 5, 1789, a crowd of 7,000 women marched all the way from Paris to Versailles to the king's palace to demand a hearing. As they went marching through, more people joined. They reached the palace and stormed it. They killed guards and put their heads on pikes. They also took the king with them back to Paris. Over the years they stripped some of his power. They also made the nobles and king pay taxes. They even made him wear the revolutionary bonnet. He eventually had enough, so he attempted to flee with his wife to Austria disguised as servants. This attempt was failed as he reached Varennes, where they saw right through his disguise and escorted him back to Paris. For his attempt to escape, he was considered a traitor. So this time, they completely stripped him away from his status as a king to a constitutional monarch. The Jacobin Club was unhappy because they wanted for the king to be removed entirely. So the revolutionaries split into two separate sides, the moderates, who wanted to keep the king, and the radicals, who wanted the king gone. They protested for the king to be removed, so the National Assembly sent the Revolutionary National Guard to disperse the crowd, but things escalated, so the militia shot the revolutionaries. The ideology for equality was set for equal death as well, no matter the social status. So this man, Dr. Joseph Guillotine, had the most brilliant idea. The guillotine, the national razor. Merit called for execution of anyone who was suspected of treason against the revolution, even the nobles and clergy. This made the French to migrate to other European countries. This made other European countries to anger, because the revolutionary ideologies might spread. The anger within the European countries made the French think they were going to be under attack. So the French, who were already in poverty, with revolutionaries against each other, and with massive massacres and bloodshed, decided to strike first. They failed, as the Austrians were allied with Prussia. The Duke of Brunswick threatened that if anything were to happen to the king, he would burn Paris to the ground. So the French listened. By doing the exact opposite on August 10, 1792. They stormed the castle to look for the king, so he fled to seek asylum at the National Assembly. This time they stripped King Louis XVI from any title to just be another peasant, so they sent him and Marie Antoinette to prison, where they would keep an eye on them. On September 22, 1792, the French Republic was declared. In order for the French to get rid of all monarch-related things, they decided to get rid of Christianity as well. They deported or arrested priests, and churches were replaced with temples of reason. They even changed the calendar and days. Since clergies and aristocrats were filling the prisons, and enemies were closing in, the people were in immense fear. So Georges Danton sent thousands of troops to the front lines. Marat published that the aristocrats were going to take revenge on the people when the enemies freed them. On September 1792, prisoners were tried and executed on the spot. Even women and children were not spared. Austria and Prussia said that Louis Capet would return to be ruler when they defeat France. Louis Capet was put on trial and was found guilty of treason. Moderates wanted him exiled from France, but Robespierre wanted for the revolution to keep going, so they needed to kill him. A vote was held which Louis Capet lost, meaning he would get sentenced to death by guillotine. So on January 21, 1793, Louis XVI was executed. France managed to push Austria and Prussia back, but more Europeans joined. So the National Assembly introduced a conscription law, which required 4 regions to reach a quota of men to join the army. But some regions were unhappy with this, and this caused uprisings against the revolutionaries. In different regions of France, some lasted for many years. In the summer of 1793, the British occupied the city of Toulon. This was a big hit against the Republic, because it was a naval base, so they sent a young Napoleon Bonaparte to regain control of Toulon, and he successfully succeeded on the winter. There were many casualties in these uprisings. In 1793, Vendée War, atrocities were made by Captain Jean-Baptiste to achieve victory. He would tie civilians to a ship, and then sunk the ship to the sea, women and children included. He was eventually charged with war crimes, and executed. Since France's situation along with their economy was getting worse, the radicals were in fear. Marat proposed to kill even the moderates in the government. So the moderates tried to arrest him, but the radicals intervened. All of this caused another war and the many wars. Robespierre called an insurrection, which would result on the moderates being no more, on the 31st of May, 1793. This made for the National Assembly to be completely in control of the radicals. Fear began to increase once again, this time because of the rapid rising of radicals and violence. A lady by the name of Charlotte Corday blamed Jean-Paul Marat. She wanted to bring back peace. Charlotte Corday said she had a list of enemies of the Republic for Marat to publish, so Marat invited her for a meeting, only leaving himself open for Charlotte Corday to kill him. Charlotte was arrested and executed, along with her dream of restoring peace. Crucifixes were replaced with statues of Marat on temples of reason. Radicals believed that the enemies of France were not only outside of the country, but within the peasants, government, and themselves, leading to the reign of terror. Robespierre declared terror as an official law on September 1793. This law created spies and secret police which would arrest and execute people who were against the Republic. If they just criticized the Republic, they would be executed. Even the slightest offense would have them executed. Robespierre achieved suppression from the enslaved stability by implementing fear on the people. Georges Danton told Robespierre they should start taking things easier by trying to end the war and restore order. Robespierre declared the Republic of Virtue, which would get rid of the enemies of the Republic. This made execution expand in 1794 by enormous levels. All people close to him would get executed if they opposed him. Robespierre created a new religion called Cult of the Supreme Being. He believed he was a god. On July 26, 1794, Robespierre made a new list of enemies which included radicals and members of the Republic. At this point they realized that Robespierre had gone mad. On July 28, 1794, Robespierre was executed with the atrocious things he had created. To restore stability, a political group by the name of Thermidorians took power and targeted Robespierre's allies, and created a system which would prevent power to fall in the hands of one individual again. Napoleon happened to be on Paris and took control of the situation. Paris never thought of more insurrections again. However, on the south, the leader of the army was no other than Napoleon Bonaparte. He paved way with his military strategies and won battle after battle. He eventually closed in on Vienna, where the Austrians had to sign the Treaty of Campo Formio on October 17, 1797. Napoleon was a national hero, but he had bigger aspirations. He went to Egypt to discover new stuff, but the British destroyed his fleet, so he abandoned them and fled back to Paris. When Napoleon returned, he found to be popular with the people of France, and the government not so much, as they had gone corrupt. He started getting power-hungry ideas, so Manuel Joseph Sieyès, a politician, convinced Napoleon to stage a coup, and so he did. With the help of Sieyès, he intimidated the council to dissolve, and he created a new constitution which made him dictator of France, and so in November 9, 1799, the revolution was finally over. But Napoleon still had more ideas in him, which would lead to the Napoleon battles.